come to my window, crawl inside, wait by the light of the moon. Come to my window, I'll be home soon. Dial the numbers just to listen to your breath. I would stand inside my hell and hold the hand of death. You don't know how far I'd go to ease this precious age. You don't know how much I'd give or how much I can take just to reach you, just to reach you, oh, to reach you.
Hello, I'm David Lyle, your host for this Sunday Assembly, June 14. We're coming to you live from Nashville. That was the Unnamed Assembly Band with a really awesome cover of a Melissa Etheridge number. We had Heather Kinley on vocals, Stephen Phelps on guitar 1 and Stephen Phelps on guitar 2, Chris Shannon on drums, and Cale was on bass guitar. So welcome to Sunday Assembly. We are a secular congregation that celebrates life. Our mission is to help each other live this one life we know we have to the fullest. 3 ways we work on that is to live better, help often, and wonder more. So, speaking of wondering more, We're going to start out with a trivia question that I want you to wonder about. And Loie's got a slide for us. And you're going to go to the URL you see on the screen, menti.com, and you're going to use the code you see there. And I want you to put in your best answer to Stephen Phelps' music question. Now, no cheating. Don't go Google it. That makes it too easy. So Gordon Sumner is the real name of A/B, The Edge, C, Moby, or D, Sting. Go to menti.com, put in 362280 as your code, and give us your answer. Loie's going to have put that answer up for us a little bit later, after my introduction here. So it's Pride Month, and we're looking back at some of America's tenacious heroes who fought back against white supremacy and anti-lesbian, anti-gay persecution and other forms of control and hate. In a few minutes, we'll be hearing from one of our own Tennessee and national heroes for the fight for justice. Our speaker in just a few minutes will be attorney Abby Rubenfeld, who has spent over 30 years defending and expanding the rights of lesbians, gay men, and other sexual minorities in the Tennessee courts and across the country. I've been thinking a lot about where I've been over the last 30 years while Abby was doing all that work. When our speaker Abby was finishing law school in 1979, I was just starting college. I was wet behind the ears, had just left Nashville, and in August I started as a freshman at Columbia University in New York City. It took me more than 4 years, but I finally came out as a gay man in my last semester in college in 1983. In a lot of ways, I had picked the worst possible moment to come out as a gay man. Ronald Reagan was president, and that spring I met a new friend, Mike. He was a law student at the University of Pennsylvania. And one afternoon, on a Sunday afternoon, he and a group of friends and I were at a diner in the village, and he told us about a friend of his who was very sick with a mysterious illness. And he said that this illness affected his friend's immune condition and that he was afraid it was going to get worse and that it was going to affect a lot of people that we loved in the gay community. And that spring, the New York Times also began running news stories almost every week about what we would eventually come to call AIDS. We were living, as I say, under the Ronald Reagan presidency. So, I don't know, looking back, I just see, like they say, history seems to rhyme a lot. There was a plague on the doorstep, and every week I heard about someone being threatened or punched or worse during a gay bashing there in New York City. One day in May 83, I was with my friends Joseph and Daryl and other friends at Oscar Lee's apartment, my good buddy Oscar's apartment. He lived about a block from Columbia and was a grad student there. And Oscar said we should all plan to walk together in the Gay and Lesbian Pride Parade the next month. For me, it was to be my first gay pride. And it seemed like a big chance to celebrate with my friends, even though it was a little scary for a kid like me from Nashville, Tennessee, who wasn't even out to anyone in my family. So the last Sunday in June 1983, June 26, we gathered on Central Park West, right by the park. Can you imagine the beautiful green scenery on the left? It was a beautiful, kind of hot day, very much like this day in Nashville, and a wonderful wall of apartment houses on the right. We gathered with tens of thousands of men and women and children for this gay pride parade. We walked down Central Park West, through Midtown, and into the East Village, and right past the doors of the Stonewall Inn, until we got to a dance party on the West Side Highway that had been closed off for the occasion, there along the Hudson River. So I walked with Joseph and Oscar and Daryl and other friends, and it, di- um, and I often think about that day, especially when I recollect Oscar, who 9 years later would be among my friends that we lost to the AIDS epidemic. We lost him in '92. But I like to think that as we gathered happily on the Central Park West at 72nd Street to get in line for that walk, that Oscar and Joseph and Daryl were my heroes. They set a good example about being tenacious. It felt good to celebrate life, even during the Reagan era, even during a growing pandemic, even when lots of political forces seemed determined to keep us down and deny millions of people the basic freedoms. In any case, I still remember dancing on the West Side with Oscar and Daryl and Joseph. That's what Pride Day is all about. There's always lots of reasons to confess and complain, as any gay man can tell you, starting with me. And since the struggle for fairness is so hard, sometimes you gotta party more to keep spirits up and push through to some tiny little victory on the other side. So Loie, do you have an answer for us about Gordon Sumner? Real name of Gordon Sumner was the real name of the artist. Let's see. Ooh, it's like 2-1 say Sting. And Moby gets 2 votes, and the Edge get a vote, and Stephen Phelps voted for Slash, because the answer is. Do we have our answer, Loie? Answer is Slash, as I remember. I'm going with that. So next up, I wanted to give a welcome mentally to our friend Kay Cho. Kay has a reading for us, and he's going to introduce us to the name of the author and the name of her book.
Hello, everybody. David, I just want to say thank you for sharing that story. That was beautiful. I appreciate it. It's good to see everyone today. I will be reading an excerpt from the book Grit, The Power of Passion and Perseverance, written by MacArthur Fellows Program Award winner Angela Duckworth. Tucked away in a perpetually foggy basin near the Pacific Ocean, Lowell is the only public high school in San Francisco that admits students on the basis of academic merit. The largest feeder to the University of California system, Lowell sends many of its graduates to the country's most selective universities. David was a freshman in my algebra class. There were 2 kinds of algebra classes at Lowell. The accelerated track led to advanced placement calculus by senior year, and the regular track, which I was teaching, didn't. The students in my class hadn't scored high enough on Lowell's math placement exam to get into the accelerated track. David didn't stand out at first. He was quiet and sat toward the back of the room. He didn't raise his hand a lot. He rarely volunteered to come to the board to solve problems. But I soon noticed that every time I graded an assignment, David had turned in perfect work. He aced my quizzes and tests. When I marked one of his answers as incorrect, it was more often my error than his. Wow, he was just so hungry to learn. In class, his attention was rapt. After class, he'd stay and ask politely for harder assignments. I began to wonder what the heck this kid was doing in my class. Once I understood how ridiculous the situation was, I marched David into the office of my department chair. It didn't take long to explain what was going on. Fortunately, the chair was a wise and wonderful teacher who placed a higher value on kids than on bureaucratic rules. She immediately started the paperwork to switch David out of my class into the accelerated track. My loss was the next teacher's gain. Of course, there were ups and downs, and not all of David's math grades were A's. After I left her class and switched into the more advanced one, I was a little behind, David later told me. And the next year, math, it was geometry, continued to be hard. I didn't get an A, I got a B. In the next class, his first math test came back with a D. How did you deal with that? I asked. I did feel bad, I did, but I didn't dwell on it. I knew it was done. I knew I had to focus on what to do next. So I went to my teacher and asked for help. I basically tried to figure it out, what I did wrong, what I needed to do differently. By senior year, David was taking the harder of Lowell's 2 honors calculus courses. That spring, he earned a perfect 5 out of 5 on the advanced placement exam. After Lowell, David attended Swarthmore College, graduating with dual degrees in engineering and economics. I sat with his parents at his graduation, remembering the quiet student in the back of my classroom who ended up proving that aptitude tests can get a lot of things wrong. 2 years ago, David earned a PhD in mechanical engineering from UCLA. His dissertation was on optimal performance algorithms for the thermodynamic processes in truck engines. In English, David used math to help make engines more efficient. Today, he is an engineer at the Aerospace Corporation. Quite literally, the boy who was deemed not ready for harder, faster math classes is now a rocket scientist. Thank you.
Thank you, Kay. That was terrific. And thank you to Melissa, who helped find that reading for us. So we're ready for a second poll. All right, you'll be going back to the same web page. Looks like our code is the same, 362280. Okay, this question. Harvey Milk is said to have fallen in love with San Francisco when a show he was working on stopped off in California on tour, on national tour. You may not know this, but Harvey Milk, among the many jobs he had when he was in New York City, he was being a Broadway show associate producer. And so one of these shows he worked on and went on national tour, including San Francisco. So which was it? Chicago, which happens to be one of my favorites, Gypsy, Hair, or Jesus Christ Superstar? Okay, now's your chance. In a few minutes, I'm going to introduce our speaker, and while she's talking, you can continue to enter your best guess in the poll. And on the other side we'll disclose the answer to you. Let's introduce the speaker. And that is Abby Rubenfeld. Abby has spent a 30-year career working as a lawyer, most of it here in Tennessee. The whole time she's been working for social justice, especially for lesbians, gay men, and other members of the LGBT sexual minority community. After college at Princeton, Abby went to Boston University School of Law and graduated in 1979. And I hope that you'll forgive this personal aside, but I would follow Abby to BU Law School just a few years later. And while I was there, I was active in the LGBT student group. And it turns out it was Abby who had helped found that very organization for my benefit and the benefit of others just a few years earlier when she was at the law school. After law school, Abby worked from 83 to 88 as the legal director of Lambda Legal Defense and Education Fund, which is a national civil rights organization that does test case litigation across the country on behalf of lesbian and gay rights and AIDS issues. While she was at Lambda, among other things, she also created the Lesbian and Gay Civil Rights Roundtable, which has grown to be an essential tool to coordinate legal efforts around the country. And she helped build the Lambda legal program from a small docket to a nationally respected group. She was the editor of the AIDS Legal Guide, first and second editions in 84 and 88, which was the first AIDS-related legal publication in the country. She was appointed by New York Governor Mario Cuomo to serve on the governor's task force on gay issues from 83 to 86. And then in 88, she received the Harvey Milk Award for the National Lesbian and Gay Health Foundation in recognition of her precedent-setting civil rights efforts that have enhanced the lives of lesbians and gay men. These are some of the reasons that I knew exactly who Abby was when she moved to Nashville in the early 90s, after cutting her teeth on these monumental tasks. When she got to Tennessee, Abby didn't slow down a bit. Starting in 92, she began a tenacious 4-year plan to overturn the Tennessee anti-gay sex statute that criminalized our private relationships Spoiler alert, she won. Then she was a key figure uh, in prosecuting appeals that led to the Tennessee case, Tanko versus Haslam, to secure marriage equality from coast to coast. So please welcome Abby Rubenfeld.
Okay, I think they said I'm live now. I hope you can see and hear me, or at least hear me. I can't see or hear anyone, but I do want to thank you all for inviting me. Okay, again, I hope you can hear me. And I want to thank you for inviting me. It's an honor. Sorry I'm technologically challenged, and that's made this difficult and late, and I apologize. Before I start speaking about tenacity, I have to comment about the incredible time in which we're living. Those of you who are my age or older know that with all the amazing things we've been through, this is even more amazing. But after such a horrible 3 years that we've endured, things getting worse and worse out of Washington, more than 100,000 people dead from a pandemic, unbelievable unemployment, constant, repeated, horrifying examples of how white supremacy and racism are embedded in the culture of our wonderful country. The list could go on and on. But at the same time, arising out of that frightening, dispiriting mess is a huge national movement that may actually succeed in changing America for good and for the good. And it's empowering and gratifying to see the sustained energy, the incredible involvement of young people, which I hope means they're going to vote in November, the actual enactment of, by states, of some real changes and serious discussion of transformational change, like rearranging priorities for police funding and organization. It's amazing and inspiring, and I'm appreciative that the good part is happening. And I hope that that continues. So on to tenacity. Did y'all know that that's also the name of a weed killer? I know that might be a whole separate topic, why that is, but anyways, I learned that when I Googled it. But I have to say at the beginning that I can't talk about my ability personally to be tenacious without acknowledging my own privilege, not just because I'm white, but also because I come from a background where my family had money, not rich, but certainly it wasn't something I had to worry about. My parents paid for college and law school, and without that, without the ability to go forward, without having to pay back hundreds of thousands in loans, completely changed or made it possible for me to make the choices I made in my career. And for that, I am eternally grateful to my parents. But on tenacity, they asked me to talk about the value of tenacity and how not to lose hope when it takes so long to accomplish something. For me, a lot of that's based on being a perfectionist and being OCD. I want to finish things that I start. I want to get it right. I want to keep going until it's finished. I can't give up on things. This morning, though, I saw an article, I think it was on Huffington Post, that was titled, "I'm a 73-year-old Black woman. Here's how I've kept hope alive for a better future." She certainly has had more challenges than me, but she said she sees it as a simple binary choice, be a credit to the race or a disgrace to the race. And I think that sums up the whole idea of tenacity for me. I take seriously my obligation to leave things better than I found them in this world, to work for justice, to not be silent or complicit in the discrimination and the injustice and the bad things that we sometimes see around us. I don't want to be complicit, and silence is being complicit, in my opinion. It is for me, and so I keep fighting. I think that we live in a wonderful country, and to me, I want to make it live up to the dream that it was when we founded it, which of course has been flawed from the very beginning. I have many examples I could share of my own tenacity. And I should also point out that you don't have to be privileged like I am to be tenacious. Anybody can be tenacious. It's just easier for me because from the place from which I started. But anyways, I chose 3 examples to talk about briefly. One is I used to be very involved with the American Bar Association, which is the largest organization of attorneys in the world. It's like 300,000 members. It speaks for the bar, it speaks for lawyers, it lobbies in Washington. It has all these policies. And when I became involved in 1983, they did not have a policy on non-discrimination, on prohibiting discrimination based on sexual orientation. And in those days, we didn't even talk about gender identity. I don't think we, realized that. It was just about sexual orientation. But at the first ABA meeting I went to, where I did a panel with Dan Bradley, who you might remember was the head of legal services. I think he helped found legal services, and he was openly gay. And he was kind of the only person in the ABA who was openly gay and doing anything. And he had tried to introduce that resolution in 1983. And I happened to walk by the room where the House of Delegates was meeting to consider it. And everybody in there, which was all old white men, no exaggeration, they were laughing at Dan, just like laughing out loud at him. It just really stuck with me. And so I took up the mantle from him, and we kept introducing it. Our biggest enemy, it's ironic, but the biggest opponent was Ted Olson. If you remember, used to be Solicitor General, maybe during Reagan. And he was very, very anti-gay until he became like Mr. Marriage Equality and helped in that. But he used to fight us. But anyways, from 1983, it didn't get passed till like sometime in the 1990s, I believe. I wasn't involved anymore. But we tried and tried and tried and tried. I even got to call Hillary Clinton once, because she used to be real involved in the ABA. I got to call her on the phone and say, "Hi, Hillary, this is Abby." I don't think she knew me, but it felt pretty cool to me to be able to do that. Anyways, tenacity paid off, and eventually hard work, beating your head against the wall basically for years paid off, and we adopted that policy. And the ABA went on to adopt numerous policies against discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. They're one of the greatest allies and supporters our movement has. Like, they lobby in Congress on almost every issue that's important to the LGBT community. They file briefs in the Supreme Court. So tenacity paid off. And a second example is about sodomy laws. When I was a legal director at Lambda Legal Defense in the middle 80s, I organized an effort to try to challenge sodomy laws. At the time, for those of you that are younger don't remember this, but most of the states had statutes that criminalized private, consensual, non-commercial sexual relations between people of the same sex. And many of the laws, including in Tennessee at first, included sexual acts that non-gay people engaged in too. In Tennessee, when I first moved here in 1979, the Crimes Against Nature statute was just defined as the abominable and detestable crime against nature. And it was upheld on a vagueness challenge that was clear enough to everybody, but it carried a 5 to 15 years in prison penalty. And I represented a young woman who was in prison, in the women's prison in Tennessee, for consensual sex with another woman. I was trying to help get her out when I very first graduated and was a baby lawyer. I don't remember. I think she did get parole. She served 2.5 years. But anyways, in 1986, the United States Supreme Court dashed all our hopes, and in a 5-4 horrible decision in Hardwick versus Bowers, said that states can criminalize private consensual sex. It was devastating. I felt like the bell jar came down over me when I heard the opinion. It was before the internet. I have to call the Supreme Court every morning at 9 o'clock to ask what opinions had been issued. And when they told me that one, I thought, and that Justice White had written it, I thought they had made a mistake and they were telling me the wrong case. But anyways, after that devastating loss, when I came back to Tennessee from working at Lambda in New York, I did a state challenge and was successful in overturning the sodomy law here. It took 10 years from 1986 to 1996, but tenacity paid off and we changed that. And eventually the US Supreme Court changed their mind and fixed that. The third example that I wanted to mention is what I call de facto parenting. Here in Tennessee and in lots of states, there are no protections for non-biological parents with whom a biological parent chooses to have a child. They raise the child together, they have a life together, and then suddenly after, 10 years, whatever, the adults break up and the biological parent decides, I don't like you anymore and you can't be a parent anymore, without regard to the devastating effect that has on a child who's been taught this is your other parent and who considers them their other parent. And this comes up repeatedly. It's primarily in the LGBT community, but it can happen in non-gay situations too, where a guy lives with a woman, helps raise her child, the child considers him a father, and then if they break up, the woman can say goodbye, regardless of the effect on the child. I've seen that happen too. But anyways, I've tried since 1999. I'm on my third case in 21 years. The National Center for Lesbian Rights, which is my favorite national group, they've worked with me on all three of those cases. And we've lost in every single one. Right now, I'm waiting to ask the Tennessee Supreme Court to take the latest example, which is a woman that she and her partner, who couldn't get married at the time, decided to have a child together, conceived the child together. Like, she helped, like took her to the doctor, was involved in all that, cut the umbilical cord, was the first person to hold the baby, did baby announcements for both of them. They were both parents on school forms. I mean, you get the idea. It's very clear that the intention was they were both parents. But when they broke up, the biological mom was like, goodbye, you're not a parent anymore, regardless of the effect on the then, I think he was 5, almost 6 when it started. And to me, that's just unconscionable. Like, of course, parents have a right to raise their kids the way they want, and they can invite anyone they want into the child's life. But my personal belief is, once you invite another adult into your child's life and teach your child that's a parent, that person is their parent, you lose the right to change that. Like, then it's about the child's best interest and how the child regards that person. But that is not the law. And so far, I'm still fighting to make it the law. And I have to tell you, when I got the Court of Appeals opinion in my current case a few weeks ago, it was devastating. It made me cry. It's like, it's hard to explain to your client, like, what justice means when something that's so unjust can happen and be upheld by judges. And Richard Dinkins wrote the opinion. That's so disappointing. Like, I think he used to be on the ACLU board. I don't know how he could do that. But anyways, I digress. But for me, like, I can't just give up. There's too many people involved, too many children affected, and it's just too not right. So I'm not going to give up. I'm going to figure out a way to make it cost less for my clients, get contributions, whatever. But I will try to get the Supreme Court of Tennessee to take it and to fix this situation. And for 20 years, I've remained hopeful that we can. So I sure hope they take it and we can change that. The final issue that they asked to talk about was the importance of equality for every human. And I don't know, to me, that is something that they shouldn't even have to ask. Like, that's a basic issue. Everyone should be treated equally, especially in this country where we were founded on that concept, even though within the founding documents there was a huge blatant flaw with the 3/5 thing about enslaved people. But to me, this is kind of hokey, but the concept of America, our constitutional system, our checks and balances, our federalism, our Bill of Rights, I think it's the best governmental system in the world. I've always been really, really proud of it. But I've had to acknowledge, as we all have or should have, that it is deeply, deeply flawed with the whole way it treated enslaved people. And we've never really gotten over that. We're still dealing with that, as we all know from what we're seeing on TV and in the news these days. But my life's work and what I'm so committed to still, even though I'm old and tired, is to make that dream a reality for all of us. it's basic and core to my being. The basic idea for me, and I guess it's also why I can be tenacious, even though I'm tired and old, is that that concept of America needs to live up to its immense potential. And right now, with the protests we're seeing for 19 days since George Floyd was murdered, that's kind of a beautiful sight that people are remembering, they're standing up, and they're going to be kneeling down too. I love how the football players and so many more white players are supporting the whole concept of bringing to this tremendous inequality and injustice. But for me, and I guess I'll close on this. I don't think I talked for 20 minutes, sorry. The beauty of America needs to be a reality for everyone. And in particular, we need to make it a reality for the people who were originally and explicitly left out, minorities and women. And I don't say just enslaved people, because American Indians were also treated as non-persons from the very beginning also. And of course, we kind of obliterated their whole cultures. And I use the word Indians because I just read, what's the name of that book? Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. I highly recommend it, although it's difficult to read. But it's the history of the West from the perspective of Native Americans. But they call each other Indians in the book. So I thought it's okay. Hope it didn't offend anybody by using that. But to me, that is our goal right now. And what's happening since George Floyd's death just points this out, that the concept of America, the freedom that we expect and are supposed to be guaranteed, needs to be made available to everyone. And all of us, especially people of privilege who have money, who have the ability to fight back, regardless of their color or their race or their economic status or their gender or their sexual orientation or their religion or anything else. Everybody needs to be tenacious and to fight this. And I want to leave you with the fact, or what is a clear concept to me, that everyone is able to be tenacious and to fight this. Some of us in different ways and on different levels because we have more privilege, but all of us need to be doing this. Together we can change things. I do believe that. It's Pollyanna-ish, but that's how I've kept going for 41 years as an attorney. So thank you all for inviting me. Thank you for being patient with my technological deficiencies, and I wish all of you the best.
Thank you, Abby. It's always such a pleasure and such an honor to hear from you and to hear from the trenches on fighting for justice. You've done a great service for us all. Thank you. So Loie has a slide prepared, and it has the answer to our second trivia question. Loie, can you show us that one? Remember, our question was, what show did Harvey Milk work on as an associate producer that took him to San Francisco? It was while he worked on that show that he fell in love with San Francisco and decided to move there and make a new life there with his partner, Scott. Harvey Milk is said to have fallen in love with San Francisco with, well, he worked on A, Chicago, B, or Gypsy, or Hair, or Jesus Christ Superstar. And looking at the responses, I see a whole lot of votes, 46% for Jesus Christ Superstar. But it turns out the show was Hair. Always one of my favorites. Thank you, Loie. Loie also has a slide. I'm going to ask you to go ahead and put that up now, depicting a really beautiful mural that I've come to admire, that many of us have, from Minneapolis. We're going to have a moment, or almost a minute for mindfulness. This will be a chance for us just to reflect and be together quietly while we live in this moment. But I wanted us to share this mural, this image, because in the center, you see behind George Floyd's portrait, you see there's a list of names. 4 artists in Minneapolis created this mural that celebrates George Floyd's life. It's at the very corner where 4 policemen murdered him just a few weeks ago. It's hard to imagine that it's been just a matter of days, isn't it? But behind him are a list of names of persons of color who have died violent deaths in America. And the mural illustrates the significance of the Black Lives Matter movement and in our efforts to make sure that mothers and fathers don't have to worry about their children going out and walking down the streets of America anymore. So we're going to have about a minute, and then Stephen Phelps is going to take us out on the other side with a light number from Clash. Okay, thank you. And now we're back after our moment for mindfulness. In my our tech crew has hopefully reminded me that I had our program out of order because next we look forward to another favorite aspect of Sunday Assembly, and that's a Trying My Best section. It's something I know I always look forward to every month, and so many of you do. And this month, our own Jen Brown is trying her best. Jen, why don't you take away?
Hi, everybody. My Trying My Best is subtitled Tenacity and Hope. In Greek mythology, there's a story of a man named Sisyphus, and his punishment in the afterlife was to push a boulder all the way up to the top of a hill. And the problem is that every time he got it to the top of the hill, it would just roll down the other side. So we basically have to start over and over again forever. I know some of us know what that feels like after these last 90 days. And sometimes it feels like that's all my life has been. Just trying to push forward to the next high point, only to be knocked down by circumstance or emotion, or just being overwhelmed by the feeling that I'm not really getting anywhere with all of my striving. But, I have something that Sisyphus didn't, or at least not that we're told. I can look back at my life and I can see how each step that was a struggle to get to a high point was worth celebrating, that it brought me along the path of a journey that has taken me so far from the cookie cutter upbringing that I had. I know now that I don't have to conform to others' expectations of what I should be, but that I feel free and comfortable and almost relieved to be able to say that I'm going to do me and you do you, and that's all there is to it. I'm reclaiming parts of my personality and dreams that I sliced off. One of the things that I think helps me in this is my patience. I'll admit, it's not something that many people say help them with tenacity, but for me it's the little things, the progress that I can see that is encouraging. I can bear with the not knowing and the uncertainty if I can see that there's progress forward. Even if I don't know what the destination is, knowing that I'm moving, that I'm doing something, making some sort of difference, is enough for me. Now, you may or may not know that I like to make things. And a lot of what I make starts off with 1,000 tiny beads or a length of string, and it becomes my task to turn those beads and that string into something that someone would enjoy having in their life. And I tell you what, I think that being able to create things and the life experience that I've had in learning that I need to slow down and take my time to do things right the first time has been so invaluable. Because when you get to row 400 on a blanket and then you realize you made a mistake way back in row 2, you kind of like, is it really worth going back to fix that one little thing when I have to undo all the work I've done up until that point? But, here's an example of how sometimes a mistake is beautiful, though. Sometimes there's part of the pattern that doesn't quite match up, but it makes the whole thing more beautiful. It makes it unique, that bears the maker's mark. And the thing is that you have to realize that the mistakes that you make along the path of your life, they fit into the mosaic of what makes you you. You are the maker of your own life, and all of the struggles and all the work that you've put into it, it will bear fruit. In some ways, it already has. The thing is, you have to enjoy that fruit of success while you have it, because life is triumph and tragedy and triumph over and over again until we come to the end of our life. So celebrate your triumphs, mourn your tragedies, but learn from them. Keep pushing that boulder. And if nothing else, you'll be stronger for the endeavor. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jen. Okay, now I promised you a song, and I hear that's up next with Stephen Phelps.
Hello, friends. Oh, Tenacity. We could sure use a little right now, couldn't we? We're missing our friends, our favorite activities, our social events. It can be so difficult. Well, when I'm feeling isolated or frustrated, maybe a little down in the dumps, I don't sing the blues. I pick up my ukulele and I sing a little song. And it seems to always get me out of those doldrums and relieve the stress. Here's one that I think has been particularly helpful during this time to help me relieve that stress. I feel so much better. One more for you. This is one Dave was talking about, a little rip-off of a Clash tune. Here's the situation now, it's kinda bleak. I gotta face it, but I don't wanna. Been in isolation now 14 weeks. Soon my toilet paper will all be gonna. Half a roll of Charmin's all I got, that's it. Counting every sheet, every time I take a and woo! My Corona. I got hooked on Tiger King, it blew my mind. Joe Exotica is such a wild persona. I've seen every episode 7 times. What else can you do when you're stuck at home? A shot of bourbon always hits the spot. Liquor is essential, but a mega church is not. That's right, woo! My Corona. I was on my laptop working from home, talking to the team out in Arizona in my underwear with my sport coat on. Spilled a hot cup of Starbucks Verona. Oh, what a treat for everyone on Zoom. I jumped up and they howled at my Fruit of the Looms. What a sight! Woo! My Corona. My Corona. Now this one's going out to all my SAN peeps. Nobody's facing this time alone. When this pandemic is giving you the creeps, call up a friend on your telephone. Keep your spirits up, and we'll all survive it. Stay away from Lysol and ultraviolet light. Woo! My Corona. My Corona. Thanks.
Thank you, Stephen. That was awesome, as some of you might have heard from my laughs. So it's almost time for our goodbyes, but first we have some announcements, and then I'm gonna have a few closing thoughts. And Loie has some images for us. Sunday Assembly does have bills, and you can help support us in the ways that you see on the image on the screen now. So you can become a sustaining member. That's very helpful to us by donating monthly through PayPal or through your credit card. And we do have ongoing charitable work that we do through the Help Often Committee, and your donations assist with that. And we do have new tech expenses associated with moving everything online for the interim. So please keep that in mind. Then you can become more involved in Sunday Assembly through volunteering. It's childcare. See me. I hope that we're back in our on-site venue sometime soon, maybe next fall, who knows. And we always provide childcare there. Jason Panks and his crew, Clayton and others, have done an amazing job of getting us up on the web. Thank you. If you can participate in some way or want to help out on production, see Jason. The tech crew is led by Steve Hughes. Music by Stephen Phelps. The Live Better Committee by Brenda Quinn. And Wonder More Committee puts together all the spoken parts of this service, and that's led by Nicole and Teresa. So you can see any of those people if you'd like to participate in some way in the Wonder More Committee's work. Join us on social media at Sunday Assembly Nashville, and you can join us at Twitter, Facebook, or online at our webpage. So I want to call your attention to next month. July 12, we'll be back with another YouTube feed, and our special guest will be Marissa Richmond. She is the founder of the Tennessee Transgender Political Coalition, and she was the first transgender person of color to be a delegate to any major party's national convention. That was in 2008, when she was a delegate from Tennessee to the Democratic National Convention. And she repeated that a few years later. She'll be talking about ways that we all can serve as allies in the struggle for justice. And our very own Kay Cho, whom you heard do the reading today, is going to be host. That'll be his first time hosting. So thank you, Kay. I want to talk just a moment about Sunday Assembly and Tenacity. We started in November 2013. Can you believe it? Seems incredible. And with a nighttime evening performance, we were in a semi-developed space in a warehouse in an alley off of 5 Points, and 120 people showed up for a room that might have comfortably seated 110. And every major news, all 4 news channels in Nashville showed up to our launch. So that was our big start. It was great. And suddenly we realized, oh, we have to do this again and again and again and again. And it's been a big challenge in so many ways. Fortunately, we had, right off the bat, Landry and Adam and I had been able to scrape together and make that first event happen. But it would take a whole new crew of volunteers to make the second and the third and the fourth Sunday Assembly happen. And you might remember, many of you who were there from the beginning, that we immediately lost our venue for a few months because it had already been booked. And so we shopped around town and went to various places, and the tech crew, the production crew, took us in and out of various alleys and in through back doors of inconvenient venues. And then we were in a park for several months through the heat of the summer, and then into another venue that lasted, we thought was a permanent home. It was just 2 months. And then off to shopping, and found our way to a home that, at the Scarlett Bennett Center, that at least lasted a couple of years. And through it all, we've been able to provide a home to a lot of people looking for a secular congregation and for a way of celebrating life and being together that just embraces the world we know we have. And so that's kept us going, hasn't it? It's been a hard road. There've been lots of challenges, but we've had fun along the way, and we've made it because we've been tenacious. So my thanks and my honor goes out to you. My applause goes out to all the many, many volunteers who have kept Sunday Assembly alive now these 6 years, nearly 6 years, and who have put together this online show. We go on, even though we can't meet in person at our East Park venue. So until next month, until July 12th, I wish you well. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of this Sunday. See you back July 12th with Kay Cho and Marissa Richmond. Goodbye.
Gonna take you out with one more? Not one more of these.
2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
I believe in good. Oh, I believe in good. I believe in being good and doing good just for goodness sake. Good makes the whole world better. Good is great, and I believe in harmony. Respect for all humanity. I believe that we will find the only truth we need, living this one life by this one creed. I believe in good. I believe in good. I believe in good. Oh, I believe in good. I believe in being good and doing good just for goodness sake. Good makes the whole world better. Good is great, and I believe in harmony. harmony, respect for all humanity. I believe that we will find the only truth we need, living this one life by this one creed. I believe in good. I believe in good. I believe in good. I believe in good. See you next month.